Hi everyone, I'm back with another review for a beautiful looking open back planar magnetic headphone that is called Moondrop Venus. Everybody knows about Moondrop by now. They're making one of the most affordable and good sounding IEMs, and I do believe that they are one of the fastest growing IEM makers out there. And after being impressed by their Starfield and Kato IEMs, I couldn't wait to test out their newest Venus planar magnetic headphones, so here we are. So these are going for $5.99 and I do believe is the right time to check them out. Build quality wise, there is a lot to like about this and very little to nitpick about. Actually, everything you see is made from either aluminum or leather, and that's pretty much it. Also, the aluminum parts are much thicker compared to a lot of other headphone brands. Everything feels really sturdy, really solid, great put together. And if you put them around some flagship headphones, they will blend really nicely because build quality is actually quite high on these ones. They also have a 100% symmetrical look, which I personally like. I have quite a few headphones which have a symmetrical look. The only thing that I don't like about them is this headphone connector which are shooting directly into your shoulders. So if you have some third-party cables that have a longer, headphone connector, they might touch your shoulders, so that is not so great. My cables are working great, but there is very little space left, so keep that in mind. Having so much metal all around, these are on the heavier side of neutral, so you'll find them quite heavy compared to plenty of headphones. But luckily they have soft earpads and a very even distribution of weight, so I can wear them for about an hour or so, maybe a little bit more. But after about an hour I can feel a higher pressure on top of my head. Comfort-wise, these are staying somewhere in between Odyssey and HiFiMANs, so being more comfortable compared to Odysseys, but not so much compared to HiFiMANs or Meze headphones. I appreciate putting these massive earpods. Just look how big these earpods are looking, and you have just a huge void space, black hole in the middle that should fit even 11 ears. So if you have some big ears, don't you worry, these will be hugging your ears pretty easily and providing you a really nice comfort. They have two detachable cables in the package, but the 4.4mm balanced one seems of a higher quality, having silver-plated single crystal copper wires compared to the 3.5mm cable that probably uses some oxygen-free copper conductors. As for tech inside them, these are open back planar magnetic headphones that uses some sort of waveguides, pretty much how all the newest Odyssey, Meze and HiFiMAN headphones are using nowadays. They have 18 magnets per either side of their diaphragm, so they have 36 magnets per a single driver, working in an old school push-pull configuration. As for their drivers, at a diameter of 100mm and at a thickness of 2 microns, these are incredibly thin and super large drivers, pretty much in line with the biggest headphone drivers out there like LCD4, Meze Elite and RZH Phobos. At a sensitivity of 100 dB and having an impedance of 18 ohms, these are not so easy to drive, although you can drive these with portable devices pretty easily. However, at 18 ohms, these are mostly current driven and not voltage driven like high impedance headphones, and you'll definitely feel quite a massive difference in sound versus, say, a portable device and a desktop headphone amplifier that can provide a higher current, because they will become more dynamic, more impactful sounding. Okay everyone, this is pretty much it, so let's check how they actually perform. I will start by saying that these will need a few hours of use until their diaphragm will settle in, because they are sounding right now clearly quite different compared to how I heard them in the first day. So I'm not sure if it's my brain or their drivers are cooking, but clearly there is a difference. And after trying and just liking and enjoying those Starfield and Kato IEMs by Moondrop, I expected that these will sound pretty much the same, Those were quite full-bodied, those were quite warm, just pushing forward a little bit more mid-range and mid-bass. Surprisingly, these are not like that. These are not pushing forward anything, basically. These are going for a more linear and neutral type of sound with a higher accent put in the treble region. And while I find those Edition XS and Sundara by Hyphaman very resolving and clean sounding, I do believe that these are cleaner sounding, more resolving, especially on the micro level. If you like hearing small subtleties and small imperfections from your tunes, then these will be doing that pretty easily. Another highlight was quite a massive soundstage and the sounds that were not coming only from my left or only from my right, and that was actually quite apparent. I was listening to Lorena McKinney and I remember looking very often at the door of my office because a few sounds were happening somewhere from around there, so that was quite interesting. I see them as poor man's HD800S by Sennheiser because there are plenty of things in common with HD800S. Their tonality is very much the same, so they are very linear sounding. They have a narrower soundstage, but the soundstage itself is again very open. These are fast and these are very detail-oriented headphones as well. Seeing full leather earpads, I was surprised by not getting hit by Thor's hammer, especially on electronica tunes. So there is a mild roll-off below 40 Hz on this pair, a bigger roll-off compared to, say, Mesium 109 Pro, which I reviewed a few days ago, making the whole bass region quite ethereal, quite lightweight sounding. On the plus side, you can improve that bass performance by using some EQ or maybe some punchier sounding headphone amplifiers like Trophomatic Head 2, which was thumpier and more dynamic versus a topping A90D and SMSL HO200. Going a little deeper performance-wise, let's talk about dynamics, about transients and power requirements, because I do believe all those are interconnected on the Venus. They sounded plain, boring, and just not so interesting from small USB dongles, from Bluetooth gizmos. There wasn't as much life, especially in the bass. Dynamics were not that impressive. They worked much better with bigger units like Shining H7, like FiO Q7. There was more life in them, especially in the bass. Everything was more fun, more lively sounding. And they sounded even better from some desktop headphone amplifiers, so there was quite a massive change. And while these are not Hyphaman Susvara, they will be sounding very different from one amplifier to another amplifier, so you'll need to experiment which one will sound best for you. However, since these are very linear sounding and these have a little bit of roll-off in the sub-bass and a roll-off in the upper mid-range, you'll need to use some warmer setups. They could sound dead on arrival or not so interesting, not so great on some topping setups, but they can sound much better on some old discrete Class A headphone amplifiers, maybe tube headphone amplifiers that can plant a little bit more life in the bass and mid-range. In either case, I find them speedy with any setup, even with small dongles, with USB DACs, but you'll need to use a bigger headphone amplifier if you want to make them impactful sounding. Bass Slam is not up there with flagship headphones, so that is for sure, but they don't need to, as Hyphaman Edition XS are performing very similarly. When it comes to depth and soundstage, you'll be hardly pressed finding something similar or better sounding, trying to wrap your head entirely with sounds. I was listening to Labyrinth by Sonar, and I remember hearing those sounds at different altitudes and also at different distances from my eardrums, creating a very defined 3D map of this album. It's not like I was listening to regular tunes, stereo music, having a left and right signal, but like I was listening to some binaural music. So I do believe in terms of soundstage depth, these are quite special, even more special compared to much pricier headphones like Odyssey LCD5, like Sandy Peacock, which were not as impressive. Actually, from my headphone collection, only 3 headphones are sounding bigger, but those are considerably more expensive. So all in all, these are impressive when it comes to width, height, and depth, highlighting spatial cues and adding layers of music even on some bad mastered music. Being their second desktop headphones, I'm surprised by how clean and detailed these are sounding, and there's literally a difference of a few months in between the first model and the second model, and these are already sounding quite impressive in here. And you know, you can change the tonality of headphone by using some EQ, by using maybe a different setup. You can do some small adjustments, but some muddy sounding headphones, unresolving headphones are just like that. No EQ can save them. Just look how much time Mesa needed to perfect those 99 Classics until they reached that much better sounding 109 Pro. So knowing that these are so resolving, clean sounding makes them quite surprised, and I see a bright future for Moondrop as headphone makers. Having a thin, lightweight, yet strong diaphragm, this will be showing you plenty of small nuances, and if you like hearing new sounds or maybe some small imperfections, then these will be doing that pretty easily, even better compared to some of their best IEMs of Moondrop. No matter what music I'm listening, be it some reference recordings, maybe some regular tunes, I'm always surprised by how free and unshackled everything sounds, yet complex and intricate. This is another reason why dedicated electronics will sound better, getting very little distortion even at 100 dB volume-wise. Their frequency response is good, but it's not that great as it looks on Moondrop IEMs. These have more drops and more rises in the frequency response. Up until 40 Hz are being reached, there's a mild roll-off in the sub-bass that makes them a little ethereal, a little lightweight sounding in the bass. The whole mid-bass region is not elevated even by a single dB from linearity, so again, these will not impress a bass addict or a headbanger. Usually I'm arriving at 90 dB and there would be plenty of bass with my headphones, plenty of energy in the bass, but with Venus I needed to rise that volume a little higher until they are becoming more playful and more impactful sounding in the bass. Of course, you can make them punchier sounding. For that you'll need some desktop headphone amplifiers, maybe some powerful portable units. Otherwise they'll be quite gentle and soft sounding in the bass. And the same can be said about their mid-range performance. It's always there, but it never tries to get your full attention. These are not so interesting past 500 Hz, so in between 500 Hz and 1 kHz there's a roll-off, so everything happening in that region is not so playful, not so meaty, not so warm, like female voices, string-based instruments are not so meaty sounding or real sounding. So these are not exactly full-bodied because everything plays at the same level and never goes up from linearity, actually it goes a little bit down. Their treble is both amazing and also weird at the same time. On one hand, you get plenty of shimmer, plenty of detail, plenty of nuance, but at the same time, it's very, very uneven. There's actually a 20 dB difference between 5 kHz and 8 kHz, getting too little information at 5 kHz and too much energy at 8 kHz. So they can get a little bright, but I didn't find them very distracting in the treble. I didn't find them actually harsh sounding. With my setup, that wasn't really a problem. With tube amplifiers, that wasn't a problem, but they can be a small problem with some ultra-linear headphone amplifiers or ultra-linear setups. No comparisons for now, but I'll be adding these into my Half-A-Man Edition XS review, which will be happening next, so stay tuned for that. I also measured them, and this is their raw frequency response. I measured them for about 15 times, and no matter how much I move them around that mini DSP ears, there's always a deviation from the right and left channel, especially in the sub-bass and upper treble. Their drivers are matched, but not exceptionally. You can see a notorious sub-bass dip, a slight mid-range dip, and a roller coaster in the treble. Their spectrogram shows a minor ringing in the sub-bass, mostly because these are trying hard to play music below 40 Hz. Their distortion reading is fantastic, there is little to no distortion building up in the bass, and everything else is looking really clean. Decay is pretty amazing, suggesting a fast-sounding headphone, and here is their waterfall that combines decay with frequency response into a single 3D graph, so you can have a better feel of their overall performance. Long story short, these impressed me with their speed, with their resolving abilities, with their open wide soundstage. And while there are several dips and rises in the frequency response, they are trying to hold everything together for a nice tonal balance without leaning towards brightness or darkness. They have a great build quality, and there's plenty of things to like about these and very little to nitpick about. And all things considered, I would buy these headphones, and for these and many other reasons, I do believe they fully deserve my Silver Award. If you don't want to invest a lot of cash into a great sounding setup, I do recommend an AUN X1 SGT or a Shining UA5 portable USB dongle that will be making them a lot more natural, a lot more full-bodied sounding. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as usual, listen to more tunes, be positive, and I'll see you around. Cheers!